At the beginning of this project, we were training helicopter pilots, we were training sensor operators who sat in the back and operated electronic equipment. What was the biggest threat? Wow, it was probably me and my naivete. I was the project director of a project that eventually accumulated 25 staff members. And we were working with Navy teams of subject matter experts. We probably had 8 or 9 subject matter experts assigned to our project. That was rich resource. And I had no idea. I'd not been trained how to manage a project that size. I had, my previous project experience had been a staff of 4 people at most, a secretary, an artist, and a writer, and myself. Well, this project was a different kind of challenge. So the biggest risk was me not understanding, and as a result, there were some big mistakes made. I would say that as far as designer secrets that I should have known that I didn't know, it would be how subject matter experts, how bodies of subject matter are organized, and how, as a designer, you have to be able to get to the heart of the subject matter quickly and efficiently, sometimes even before the subject matter expert is there. I tell you about another project. I was working on a project with DC-10 pilots for a major airline. And we were doing a task analysis, trying to identify all the tasks that these pilots had to be able to perform. We got to the part where we were talking about emergencies they had to be able to perform. And we were listing emergencies that were in the pilot's handbook. And I was all the time going through trying to make sure, are we leaving anything out? Is there anything that could go wrong with this aircraft that a pilot would have to be able to respond to that needs to go into this task analysis? And they said, oh, no. And I said, well, okay, hydraulic systems. Your aircraft's got 2 hydraulic systems. And they said, yeah. And I said, well, what if both hydraulic systems, we've got a single hydraulic system failure here, and you got a procedure that the pilot has to learn for that. What about if you have a dual hydraulic system failure? What if both of them go out at the same time? Oh, it never happens. If one of them goes out, the second one kicks in, automatically turns itself on. You don't have to do anything. I said, hasn't there been any instance, or isn't there some possibility of that happening? No. So we left it out of the task analysis. Not 9 months later, there was a DC-10 flying over St. Louis, somewhere in the region of mid-US, and a private plane clipped off its tail, and both hydraulic systems failed. And there were 300 people on board. Now, a quick-thinking pilot figured out a way. I mean, what happens when a hydraulic system fails on a major airliner? You can't control the aircraft, and you can't turn it, you can't bank it, you can't do anything. So how did they land that aircraft? They finally did land the aircraft. It was a crash landing, but it was a landing. And half of the people on board survived. So 150 people survived that crash landing in a cornfield. How did the pilot figure out how to handle that emergency? Well, they used the jet thrust, the throttles. They would adjust it this way if they wanted to turn this way. They would adjust it this way if they wanted to turn it this way. And so they were able to land the aircraft where they wanted to. And of course, they did altitude control just by denying gas to the engines. So they brought it down, and 150 people were saved that otherwise would have died. But I always remembered that one time when I had the instinct to say, I think I know your subject matter better than you do, and I think this is something that could happen. This is a task that you ought to include in your training. I'll just bet you it's in the training now. And so you have to, as an instructional designer, you can't just be naive. You can't just accept what they tell you. You've got to question everything. You've got to become a big critic.